boy, is it finally good to see the market acting like there's a calamity going on. We are now reaching 2,000 people dead thanks to the coronavirus. And that's all the people the Chinese are actually willing to tell us. We know that they've lied about the extent of their tragedies before. You can go as far back as World War II. We didn't know what extent the Chinese losses were until many, many years after the war. We found out they lost well over 6 million people. No one had any idea that kind of damage was going on in China during World War II. Now, fast forward to now, we've got a stock market that was for a long time, up until today, hopefully, running like everything was A-OK. Over 600 million people in some kind of quarantine, yet we were reaching all-time highs as recently as just a couple days ago. Things have got to change, and I think finally, with a large seller dumping what looked like his entire portfolio today, we finally got the 1% shock move that we needed to let people know, hey, something wrong is going on here. Now, I don't believe that this is a straight down move, but I do believe what this does is gives people some hesitation on adding to their positions. Now, as someone who is selling a course on selling calls at millionairetradingacademy.com, I am loving the idea of the market slowing down, because for a long time it was just the pile on, right? So we've had to revert to selling call options as the weekly calls were just hidden. I mean, if you go back to Apple, you look at AMD, you look at Nvidia. I mean, if you were to sell puts for the week, every week was a winner. I had moved to gold and I was doing that in gold, and it was working out perfectly. And also, if you took a look at some of my trades on Twitter as well for selling calls in Apple, that worked out as well too. And that's why I'm now selling calls, because I believe the market's going to slow down here. If you are in a stock with very high implied volatility, I think you start selling calls 10% out, right? For example, Nvidia, right? Nvidia right now at 308, it still had at the close $4 on those 330 call options going out to, what is that, just 22 days out. I believe that's March 13th. Those call options at 330, which is $20 from where we are now, we're trading at $4. That's a shitload of money. You can go ahead and sell those against maybe the 340. So 330 against 340. That's the position I'm in for 22 days out, right? So if you go look at Apple right now, for example, you can still sell the 340s or even the 330s. I'm in 325. I wanted to come in a little closer. But again, getting out 3, 5, 10% from where the current market price is, that's where I'm looking to be able to be a seller.
We're trying to get paid.
Making money, make it. Dollar,
We're trying to get paid.
Making money,
Make it save and invest, stacking up checks, let's go.
Michael Bloomberg is the former mayor of New York from around 2003 to 2015. This man, no doubt, put thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of people in jail. He destroyed families, destroyed lives. There are individuals who have lost family members because of the policies that he oversaw. This man is dangerous, and he is someone that we have to do everything in our power to make sure he does not become president of the United States. This man is more dangerous than Donald Trump. You see, Donald Trump is someone who talks a good game, but his follow through is very weak. I mean, if you for all the things that the Democrats and the fearmongers said about Donald Trump, there's really nothing going on under Trump that wasn't going on under everybody else. Let's just be honest. So, does Donald Trump have racist leanings? Absolutely. Is he a racist? Absolutely. But he is not someone who follows through on the things that his constituents, but particularly his hard right constituents, really care about. He just isn't making those strives. He hasn't done anything with the H-1B visa program. He hasn't really curbed immigrations as much as he lets people think he actually really hasn't. And for the most part, there are a lot of illegal immigrants in America, and he has yet to really implement a strong program to do anything about them. So a part of me lets me know that being a real estate tycoon that he is, that illegal immigration is actually very, very beneficial to him and his big buddies who build a lot of beautiful big buildings. So he hasn't gone that far. But back to my topic, Mayor Bloomberg is somebody who is really, could follow through on those things. All right. This guy, because he has the chutzpah, all right, of being someone who is seen as being right and left, he could get away with a plan that really harms people who look like me. All right. And he's already done it. He is dangerous. And I want you to listen to how he really conceptualizes his ideas, his beliefs about people who look like me, and what he believes that we're worth to this society. The inability to really connect the dots between poverty and crime is what I've always been shocked about when it comes to Mayor Bloomberg, his inability to really do that. But I need you to listen to this clip right now.
The blacks and Latinos score terribly in school testing compared to whites and Asians. If you look at our jails, it's predominantly minorities. If you look at where crime takes place, it's in minority neighborhoods. If you look at who the victims and the perpetrators are, it's virtually all minorities. This is something that has gone on for a long time. I assume it's prevalent elsewhere, but certainly true in New York City. And for many, many years, people said there was just nothing you can do about it.
Now, to put out some facts, we do have to agree that when it comes to stop and frisk, Mayor Bloomberg was not the person to originally start the program, but he was the person to implement tasks and procedures that exaggerated its ability to antagonize and cause pain to the population groups that he specifically directed it to target. And that is black people and Hispanic people in the city of New York. Now, we can dig up a ton of articles about all the lawsuits, the deaths by the hands of the NYPD, the assaults, the rapes at the hands of the NYPD towards these populations. But that wouldn't be fair if we didn't address that Mayor Bloomberg does a great job of speaking the language of white supremacy. He understands how to present whiteness in a way that abdicates whiteness from its ability to do any wrongdoing, right? For it's that looks at whiteness in a way that says, hey, whiteness cannot commit crime. Whiteness cannot be unintelligent. Whiteness cannot be wrong. And to see a policy, right, or to see a way of presenting whiteness that has been done for, hundreds of years, but now in its modern form through this man, you then are able to get the courage and the permission to implement policies that, encourage mass incarceration, encourage gentrification, encourage, the lack of opportunities toward vulnerable population groups that need that investment the most. You're able to, move that money somewhere else and put that into programs and policies and dangerous policing policies in particular that create these massive police states where you just have dozens of officers that flood these communities constantly looking for problems. And you're going to find it when when you're in communities that don't have opportunity, you're going to find problems. And then you just create a cycle where the poverty creates the problems and the police are there and they're able to produce the data that justifies them being there. So it's just over and over and over and over again, a cycle. Besides the lack of compassion that he has for the people he's talking about, we see, again, an inability to really, connect the dots between poverty and low test scores and poverty and crime, right? This is not something we've got to, think about or do research on. There's been millions of dollars spent on how poverty creates crime and how poverty creates children who don't have the ability to do well on tests because their parents aren't in a home during times when they need to be studying, because they are malnutrition, because they don't have parents who themselves are smart enough to do well on those tests. People who come from good homes do pretty well in school, unless they're lazy or just intellectually deficient, right? People who come from good homes don't commit crime. People who come from bad homes, who come from poor homes, they commit crime. When we're talking about the city of New York in particular, let me zoom out a little bit. Inequality in America is a big problem. When we look at the top 1%, for every $26, everyone else makes one. So they make $26 for basically every one that you make. That's the disparity ratio. And in New York, it's almost double. 44 in the top 1%, $44 for every $1, right? So that's more than 44 times in that particular state, 44 times the bottom 1%, the bottom 99% of that particular state. And that makes it the worst in the nation. Inequality in the city of New York is the worst in the nation, probably in the world. More than likely, probably in the world, when we're talking about one single city, the difference between rich and poor. And when you have that kind of income inequality, what happens is that wealth is so calcified at the top that you don't have the dollars necessary to really feed into the communities that need help the most. And why this matters is that if you're an investor, right, particularly like someone like me or a trader or something, you're not getting maximum ROI when people at the bottom aren't getting the things they need. All right? You have to create stimulated growth because there's no real growth. Right? Real growth happens when people at the bottom, people in the mid part, people in the upper mid part, they win as well. They win as well. That's where you get real ROI. That's where you get real growth. So I don't make this video to disparage anyone.